West Palm. I'm Jonathan Hood from ESPN Without in Chicago, and of course our colleague Gabe Neitzel. Well, he's on assignment this week. He's covering Women of Wrestling for the CW Network, so he's not with us now, bro. It's
the guy's all over the place. You got to appreciate that from him.
Doing site surveys apparently for the NWA over at the CW Network. I mean, he loves golf, so Live Golf, NWA, Women of Wrestling. He's all about it.
The big three, as they call them.
it's the big three. So Gabe is not with us, but we've got so much. We've got not one, but we got two great guests for you. We will talk to Mickie James, the Impact Wrestling. So Bound for Glory is going to take place, bro. It's in Chicago at Cicero Stadium on Saturday, and Mickie James will take on Trinity for the Impact Knockouts Championships. It's going to be great to hear from Mickie James.
Yeah, so awesome career. We could talk to her about some other things, like maybe her husband making a big WWE debut this week.
Yes, we could talk about that with her. And also another great guest, WWE superstar Drew McIntyre is going to stop by the show as well. So usually we have one, but we've got an action-packed two big guests. Drew McIntyre, who is trying to find himself. The Royal Rumble is going to be in Tampa, St. Pete in January, and Drew's going to talk about that and what's going on with his career as well.
Yeah, we get to talk about our areas. Like you said, Bound for Glory coming to Chicago. The Rumble comes to Florida. Not quite West Palm, but Tampa-ish. It's a short drive. You can do it in a day. Tickets go on sale tomorrow. Drew comes on to talk about that. But some pretty cool guests. I'm excited about those conversations.
No question about that. And don't forget, everybody, to like, share, and subscribe Good Karma Wrestling. We're on podcast as well. You can find us on Twitter, X, at GKW_wrestling, and of course on YouTube as well. Subscribe and let people know that we're talking wrestling every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific. Good Karma Wrestling. Subscribe to the YouTube. We're growing every day, and we've got clips every day. If you missed it, right there on YouTube for Good Karma Wrestling. All right, we got so much to get in on this hour plus of Good Karma Wrestling. Let's start with the lead story for Good Karma Wrestling. What do we have, Brian, as far as our lead story here for GKW?
Last night, Sting, in front of a crowd in AEW Dynamite, announced that his last match will take place Revolution 2024, the same pay-per-view where he had his first AEW match. So we'll start with this. Who should Sting's last match be against?
Well, I think that the three of us on the show with Gabe have talked about how Darby Allin and Sting should be the final match. And it makes me wonder if this final match is going to be a tag team match. Does Sting have enough in him to be able to have a singles match? It's the one thing we have not seen. So, right. bro, this goes back a long way for me. So I remember as a kid in the going through the magazines, going to the local White Hen or whatever it was, right? And seeing like Sting and Dingo Warrior at the time, or like, the tag team of the Blade Runners. So Sting and the Ultimate Warrior, and they were together as a tag team. And boy, they were green as grass, but they were big and muscular, and they were different, right? To see Sting go from there as a tag team wrestler to be in this big penultimate matchup with Ric Flair at the Clash of Champions 1 was amazing to see. And it really was the coming out party for Sting against Ric Flair. He goes on to win the World Championship in 1990, but Sting was always cool. Whether it was blonde Sting, whether it's dark hair Sting, he was always cool. And for him to just come out there in Rosenberg, Texas and go, yeah, by the way, for real this time, I'm going to retire. It's funny. We didn't talk ever on this show about, boy, that's enough of that Sting. We got to stop seeing Sting. But it looks like he's going to end it for real at Revolution.
Well, so sort of along that point, there's no date, there's no venue, there's no tickets yet for Revolution. There's at least one, if not two shows between now and Revolution. What was the point of that announcement last night?
I guess they just want to plant the seed that whenever it's going to be, get your tickets. Now, it's interesting. It can't be in Los Angeles where he's from and where he started, right? Because you've got Full Gear at the Forum in Inglewood, California coming up in November. So it's not there. Could it be in Texas when he was in World Class? Could it be in another place? I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be, but it's almost like, and this is actually a good job by AEW. Hey, just so you know, I'm going to be retiring soon. And so whenever that is, get your tickets because this will be the last time you'll see Sting.
But it also, because AEW feels like they're going to do this, and then tickets are going to go on sale in 2 months, and we're not going to have seen Sting. And it's like, oh, yeah, is that the show I'm supposed to buy tickets for? It's just very odd timing, and it looks like they're going to move it forward. Next week, Tony's giving him a gift. So we have that to look forward to on Dynamite next week.
that's kind of weird. So like it'll be a rocking chair or like maybe a bucket of paint. I don't know. Like I don't know what that's
A
gonna be.
bat, a new bat, maybe.
Yes. Imagine this though. Again, this is about hindsight. The way I look at it now. If you're going to put AEW on the road, if you're ever going to do it, this is the time to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is the last time you'll see Sting in this city. Go to all those towns, have a couple have some house shows every week. Put Sting on it. If Sting wrestles, fine, or if he just shows up, fine. Last time to get an autograph or to be able to see Sting in a ring. But they're not going to do it that way because, just be honest, AEW's done a really good job of taking care of Sting.
Mm-hmm.
AEW's done a better job than WWE did as far as handling The Undertaker toward the end. They've kept Sting special. He doesn't talk all the time, doesn't wrestle all the time. He does make appearances, but it's not like they've overdone Sting. So, I mean, if it's me, like I'm getting as much merchandise out there. I'm trying to sell as many tickets to see Sting for the last time. But Sting pretty much said, okay, I'm going to be 65 here. And it's like, this is ridiculous. Why did I keep coming out here? So whatever it's going to be end of an era because I'm a Sting fan. I love how AEW's kept him special. But, man, I just think that if I'm AEW, I'm definitely doing a full court press to get as much money around the Sting name as possible.
I think that makes plenty of sense. It's been 20 matches in a little under 3 years. Like you said, no singles matches. Does the last match have to be a singles match?
I think that he can do it if it's a short match.
Sure.
You know.
So that's the thing. Like Darby is the obvious answer, but like I started thinking, is there someone else that you can put him in with that can sort of carry him through 10 minutes and maybe sort of get that rub at the end? Like one of the names I wrote down was Swerve.
Swerve works, yeah.
Like Swerve gets that elevation. Like Ricky Starks. Like I'm thinking of some of their top heels that need something. One of those guys carrying him around for 10 minutes, him doing what he has to do and going out on his back, like that could be a special moment for one of those young guys in that company.
I know we don't do TNA nostalgia, but could that be Christian against Sting? Because you remember the pop, right? In the UK, I think, was that Christian and Sting in the same ring?
Yeah, part of the tag match, yeah.
Yeah, and then the fans were chanting TNA. I'm like, what? Of all things to chant, like people remember, like it shows you people were watching but didn't want to admit it.
Right.
It was like, wait a minute. So I saw them. I remember that in the UK, that big crowd they had, and as soon as you saw Christian on one side, Sting on the other, people started chanting TNA, of all things. TNA.
That is true. Well, I guess in that situation, that's a way for Sting to go out as a winner because I've debated whether like he has to go out with the loss or does he go out having never suffered a pin in AEW, go out undefeated. To me, I would love to see one of these young guys get to pin him and be the guy that ultimately pins Sting in his final match.
So that wouldn't leave a sour taste in your mouth?
No, not at all. I think Sting's one of those old guys. It's the way to do business. Like I think it's be awesome for him to do that.
I agree with you, and he'd still get the same ovation if he won or if he lost, right? Because I think that Sting, I mean, really old school guy, even though he feels new school because with that face paint, he still looks young. It's not like he's hurting at all. He's still diving off the balconies. Like he's doing shit that I've never seen before. Like they wouldn't allow that in Mid-South. They would not allow that in WCW, TNA, all the play WWE for the short stint. But for him to be doing what the young guys do, it's like, first of all, that's leading by example. And he's like, it's 2023. I'm going to just dive off of balconies now. Like, what? Sting, you're 64 years old. Why are you doing it? And not hurt, by the way. I suppose you're right. That's the right way to go about it. Time-honored tradition. You lose the match, okay? And then you get an ovation afterwards. You know how Tony Khan is, though. He just thinks that it'd be great if he beats one of these, current, regular superstars. I don't know if that's the way to go.
You're the historian. You don't want to see an old feud. You don't want to see him Flair, him and Steamboat. You and I sat next to each other. Steamboat still got the chops.
No, I don't.
You don't want to see that one more time?
No. You know why? Because Steamboat's never been booed before. He doesn't want to be booed. I saw him in Chicago again, pulling out the same stuff from the 80s. The old chops, that still works today. The old kung fu. It's like, what is he doing? Those violent chops from Steamboat, those things.
It got the job done.
It still works today, I'm just happy that Sting made his announcement. in Rosenberg, Texas, I think it was mixed because they're like, "Oh man, don't leave. I mean,
Right.
you've been great." And and by the way, Sting's never really been a great promo. He really hasn't. I mean, I've watched him since 1987. Okay, that's how far back. I mean, he's never really been a great promo, but he had the mic by himself, and he just they gave him all the time in the world to say it. And it wasn't like the crowd was 100% like sad, but they were, I think, leaning in, interested to find out what's next with Sting.
Yeah, it was very odd. Even the reaction, like you had just reactions to names, like the pop for the Steiners, the booing of Hogan. Like it was just very odd. And like I said, that crowd overall wasn't great last night. So it's just weird to have him in that spot. And even the way he was sort of teasing it, like, "Oh, I don't want to say that word." It's like, "Oh, so this is where we're going right now." Like, and it's happening in 5 months. So like, I guess it is a farewell tour, and Sting deserves that. But it was just very odd to see it last night.
You didn't expect it. That's all,
Right.
because you thought Sting would live forever. That's why. I mean, but you know what? I'm happy for him that he made that decision, bro. It's because, I just think about like his run for the NWA Championship was so huge because it felt like something different. After all the 80s dominance of Harley Race and Ric Flair, here's Sting just out of a box, platinum blonde, all this energy, and he gets an opportunity for the championship, and he has a 45-minute draw with Ric Flair at the Clash of Champions. 89, he was supposed to win the championship. He's in a 6-man tag team match. Somehow Sting is part of the Horsemen. He gets kicked out of the Horsemen. Sting is climbing the cage in Corpus Christi trying to get after the Horsemen that told him you're no longer a Horseman of Ole Anderson and Arn Anderson. He slips on the cage and screws up his knee. So he couldn't wrestle at the Great American Bash. 1990, July 7th, I think I might have that right, July 7th, 1990, he wins the championship. He wins the championship, and it's the 90s, right? It's early 90s. It's a little murky. People are tired of Hulkamania, tired of the baby face. It was just kind of a very difficult time. So Sting still rules in WCW, and people still respect him. That whole NWO thing where he didn't speak for a year.
Right.
Which is bizarre, by the way. He's on camera, but he's Crow Sting. So he goes from bleach blonde Sting to platinum to dark Sting. He's got the big trench coat. It got over. How can you get over and be one of the top guys in merchandise after the NWO when you don't speak at all?
Right.
Finally wins the championship against Hogan, which was cool. I think that was fine. That whole thing with the WWE, we all agree that was horrible. After his TNA run, don't forget the TNA run, by the way, because Dixie Carter loved him. He was a draw for TNA. And people kept asking during that TNA time, why don't you go to WWE? Why don't you go to, and he's like, nah, it's not going to do that. And we thought he'd be the last one, right? The last guy was like, I'm never going to WWE. He gets talked into it. And it was a shitty run. The way that they mishandled that, they bungled it. They made it seem like it was WCW against WWE again, which was ridiculous with the WrestleMania in San Francisco and the Bay Area. And then just to see him now, man, it's just people's always had a lot of respect for Sting. And so I'm glad he's going to go out on his terms.
And I think there's something to like the longevity, like you mentioned Taker, where it was one character all the way through. It was obviously a Hall of Fame career. But like in real sports, when we talk about the Bradys and LeBrons, where like they've had 2, if not 3 Hall of Fame careers, Sting is sort of in that boat. Like, I feel like you can put the bleach blonde Sting in its own Hall of Fame and say this was a hell of a career, and then take the Crow one also and say, oh, that's a Hall of Fame career also. And then, like you mentioned, even some of the Impact stuff and some of the Joker Sting, like reinventing himself and continuing to be top of the game, like that says a lot about him.
Joker Sting came out of nowhere.
Right.
That was so entertaining. Like because I didn't know there was another gear in Sting.
Right.
Like, that was a surprise. It was one of the few things I really liked on Impact or TNA wrestling. I'm like, whoa, Sting's going nuts. This is interesting.
But we're seeing that new gear now, like you said. We're seeing him dive off of stuff at 60 that even he's like, I didn't know I could do that. Like Darby said, let's try this. And there he goes.
You think that would have happened in the 80s, we would have saw some crazy stuff like that. But Sting's doing this late in his career. So it's definitely a lot of fun. So all the best to Sting. I say, like, him against Darby. It doesn't have to be babyface versus heel match.
Sure.
Because Darby doesn't have to turn because he's got his own issues, clearly. that's happening in AEW. So all the best to Sting. I can't wait to see what's next for him. Well, as we mentioned, we have a couple of great guests that we're going to have on here at Good Karma Wrestling. Again, like, share, subscribe our podcast, and of course, subscribe on YouTube as well. Here comes Mickie James here. You talk about one of the all-time greats. Impact Wrestling, Bound for Glory, going to take place in Chicago this upcoming Saturday at the Cicero Stadium in Chicago. You can watch it on Fight TV, FITE, Fight TV. Mickie James against Trinity. Our conversation with the great Mickie James right here on Good Karma Wrestling. Great conversation with Mickie James. Again, Impact Wrestling, Mickie James against Trinity. And it's, by the way, great for Trinity as well, because Trinity will be taking on, again, a great Mickie James. That actually should be the main event on that card.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see those two. Trinity has really stepped up her game in Impact, getting a new stage. It'll be fun to see those two in the ring.
You know, bro, we still have more for this number one, right? This is the biggest number one that we've ever had in Good Karma Wrestling, because not only do we have Mickie James, but you got a chance to talk to a WWE superstar.
That's right. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, Royal Rumble tickets go on sale. It'll be at the Trop this year. I'm going to almost guarantee there'll be more tickets to the Rumble than the Rays playoff game. But it'll be here in the Sunshine State. Drew McIntyre, the 2020 winner of the Rumble, former world champion. He joined to talk about the Rumble and his journey as well.
Unnecessary.
Welcome back in Good Karma Wrestling. Before you know it, the road to WrestleMania will be underway, and this year that road starts in Florida. The Royal Rumble, January 27th in Tampa. Tickets on sale tomorrow, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern on Ticketmaster. And joining us now, he's the former winner of the match 2020, Drew McIntyre, joining us. Drew, we'll start talking Rumble. You won in 2020. What is that feeling like at the end of that match when you realize you're the last man standing in that match?
Overwhelming, completely overwhelming, especially for myself with the journey that I've been on my whole career and all the ups and downs. And when I was a kid, I was supposed to be the future of the company, supposed to have won a bunch of Royal Rumbles, supposed to have won a bunch of titles, but it didn't quite go that way. And then I got my butt fired and had to find my way back to WWE, find my way back to the top of the mountain, and finally break through that glass ceiling by winning the Royal Rumble in 2020. And 40,000 people going crazy at the end when they potentially could have booed, because Edge had made his comeback to WWE after 9 years of being missing and retired and was never going to wrestle again. And there he was wrestling in the Royal Rumble. And I was thinking while I was in there, oh, well, if I win, they might boo like they have in the past when Roman Reigns won and Batista won. So I might be one of those guys that get booed for winning. Thankfully, they didn't boo, they cheered. It was a very, very special moment and 100% top 5 moments of my career.
That moment led to a title win at WrestleMania in an empty stadium, not in front of fans. How much do you still think about that moment and how it could have been different with 70 to 90,000 people cheering you on?
I try not to dwell on it too much, but yeah, I mean, obviously I've got feelings about it that I'm talking about on TV now. I guess of therapy sessions live on the air these days of, what really is going on deep inside. Because the truth is, I didn't grow up hoping to win the Royal Rumble, then go to WrestleMania and win it in front of nobody. But obviously, we couldn't have predicted a worldwide pandemic. And as much as it wasn't ideal, my match is a very feel-good story. We'd taken WrestleMania over 2 days for the first time. I was going to be in that last match, main event, and maybe make some people smile during a time where people needed to smile, where people were scared. So I took that responsibility on, happily. I'm very proud of what I was able to do and WWE did during that time to help people escape. But, nonetheless, I lost out on a lot of moments, a lot of character building moments, a lot of connection with the fans moments that you can't really capture once that initial period's passed, that first title reign has passed. So, as much as I'm proud of it, at the same time, you've got those feelings inside of, man, I need to have that moment again. Like, I'm just gonna have to work hard and recreate it, which I did somehow with Clash of the Castle in the UK, and then got bumped out of that one again. So some other less less mentally strong people because of my journey might have cracked, but I kept fighting on, hopefully find that moment again. And we've got Seth Rollins coming up, so hopefully finally get that moment with the world title in front of fans.
You talk about that journey. It's a unique one. And like you said, you had all the hype coming in. You end up getting fired. You go reinvent yourself. You come back, and now here you are, top of the mountain again. How much do you hope guys and girls, when they see that end of the line possibly in sight, use you as motivation, saying, hey, this isn't the end of the line. Let's hit the drawing board and really can, redo things now?
I mean, I hope they are inspired. And from what I gather, the company literally tells people kind of, do a Drew. My brother once said, you've become a verb. To kind of go out there and reinvent yourself, grow your brand, and make yourself more valuable. And I believe that's the advice the company literally gives people. And some of the superstars that are released come to me and ask advice. And hopefully they'll look at the template of what I did. Because when I left, the model was usually take that WWE character, take it around the world, get paid X amount. The second time around, you'll make a little less. And finally, you'll find a wage that you stop on, and that'll be your wage. And hopefully one day you'll make it back to WWE. My business mind said that was terrible business sense. It's like, I'm absolutely not doing that. I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to show what I can truly do. Social media is becoming really big, which it was becoming huge in 2014. I can take everyone around the world with me on my journey, and I'm really going to reinvent what it means to be an independent wrestler. And thankfully, a lot of people believed in me, gave me a lot of opportunities, a lot of platforms to show what I could do. And it really succeeded, and everybody can follow that. The next guy was Cody Rhodes, and he had his own version, which led to the creation of another company. And you watch Matt Cardona now, and Cody and I eventually kind of went to the TV level. Matt's been able to keep on that independent level, but really, become super popular, super successful, and he's got that carny in him that never truly had. So he's doing very, very well.
Well, for you then, we've talked to Matt Cardona about it, the way he's reinvented himself. He's hit his own top of the mountain. Was WWE always the goal when you're reinventing, or was there, hey, this is what I'm going to do forever now?
Initially, WWE was the goal. If you listen to my interview with Jericho and his podcast, it was the first thing I did. I said, I'm going to go out by myself and then, be back home. So all these people I grew up with, not just on TV, but all the people that work backstage have been there forever and are still there to this day. So, I'll be back to, my second family one day, and then intended it to be quick. But the way things worked out and how successful I was out with the company, not just like financially, but also just creatively so fulfilled, and know I was doing this with my friends and with my own vision. I eventually got to the point where I was like, I don't know if I will be back. I think I want to tackle this next, go here next, go to Japan next. And I had a kind of idea in my head of what I was going to do. And it wasn't until I spoke to William Regal on the phone and spoke to Hunter on the phone that I knew it was time to come back to WWE. And they were right, and it was the right time to return when I did.
Royal Rumble tickets on sale 10 a.m. tomorrow. Tropicana Field in Tampa. You win the Rumble, you go to WrestleMania. In an ideal world, who's the dream WrestleMania opponent for Drew McIntyre?
I don't care as long as I'm champion. As long as I beat Seth for the title. Maybe I'll enter the Rumble as world champion like Brock did, except actually win it and just sit in a chair in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania by myself and just go, sorry guys, this is the main event. I won the Royal Rumble and I was champion. So you just have to watch me for 15 minutes, read a book or something.
And then before we let you go, we saw John Cena talk about it at Money in the Bank. For you growing up as a wrestling fan, what would WrestleMania being in the UK mean to you one day?
That'd be unbelievable. I didn't even think of it as an option growing up. Just like I never thought Clash of the Castle was an option. Like I remember doing interviews for that. I was like, it's a dream scenario, but a dream I never thought of because I didn't think it was possible. And that would be the same case for a WrestleMania. It'd be like a super dream. I didn't think it would be possible. But looking at the way the business has evolved and our business model now and how many international shows we do and how successful they are for the company, and the time difference isn't that bad in the UK. Like, I heard that for years, and I complained, and then finally we got Clash at the Castle because I was like, we're doing a show in Australia. We've seen the time difference there. Don't be silly. Do a show in the UK. But now the idea of a Mania is very much possible. I know how successful it would be for the company, but I know how amazing it would be for the fans, and I know how much fun it would be for everyone around the world to watch, because we know how crazy and fun and wild the UK fans are. Just take 1 second to watch Clash, not just my match, but for the whole show, just how wild they were from beginning to end. And imagine that at WrestleMania.
10 a.m. Eastern, Friday, tickets on sale, the Royal Rumble. Drew McIntyre will be there. Tropicana Field in Tampa. Drew, thanks so much for the time, and best of luck the rest of the year.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you for having me, and I will chat to you all.
Oh, how about that? WWE superstar Drew McIntyre on Good Karma Wrestling for the first time. Bro, you just have a way with these guests, just breaking them down, making them newsworthy. How outstanding was that conversation?
Yeah, you never know going into it, like how guarded they're going to be. They're on a junket. They're talking to people. They're tired. And then when he started mentioning stuff, I was like, oh, he's willing to talk about Matt Cardona. He's willing to talk about other companies. Just super chill guy. Call me buddy. We're buddies now, me and Drew.
You found a friend.
Yes.
Drew McIntyre. That's what it sounds like. Just as an aside, as we get ready for number 2, I just want to just tell you that, Nick Khan is a big influence in WWE in that even with Vince and his big grand ideas of having big platforms for the WWE, it's Nick Khan that just says, yeah, you know what, we need to be in some of these baseball stadiums.
Sure.
You know, they're going to be in Tampa, St. Pete. I know you took a shot at the Rays, and rightfully so. But you know that this is going to pack the house. People will travel from all over the country, all over the world to Tampa, St. Pete for this big event because this is a nice size stadium. There's concert there at times at the Trop, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I have friends down here. So from where I am, we're like 3-4 hour drive over to Tampa, St. Pete area. I have multiple friends like, hey, I already purchased tickets. Like the pre-sale's been going on this week. It's general sale tomorrow. And they're pumped. Like, hey, I bought 2, like Christmas present for my son. Like they are excited to go because the Rumble's that one thing. Like Mania is a Super Bowl, but the Rumble's just so special and it just draws everyone in. And that's going to be pretty fun in Tampa in January.
Yeah, that's Gabe's favorite event. Like,
yeah.
He says WrestleMania is for the non-wrestling fan and those just kind of helicopter in for the event. But he believes that the Royal Rumble is a real wrestling fans event. And so that's great. You know, Nick Khan, hats off to him. Keep going to football and baseball stadiums and whatever you draw. But, I mean, this is going to be big. Royal Rumble was just, you know, a little thing in Albany, New York once upon a time. And now it's a big tentpole event for WWE.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Tampa. 10 a.m. Eastern. Tickets on sale tomorrow on Ticketmaster.
All right, after that explosive number 1, let's go to number 2 here in our 3 count here on Good Karma Wrestling.
All right, Pro Wrestling Illustrated released their Women's 250, the top 10 for you. Number 10, Jordan Grace. Number 9, Camille out of the NWA. Number 8, Willow Nightingale. Number 7, Deonna Purrazzo out of Impact. Number 6, Athena. Number 5, Tom Nakano. Number 4, Jamie Hayter. 3, Bianca Belair. 2, Julia out of Japan. And number 1, Rhea Ripley. Did PWI get their Women's 250 right?
I think so. I like that top 10. Jade Cargill, you mentioned, correct?
Correct. She was not top 10.
Okay. Is that not a disconnect? Did she not do a lot for AEW for her time there?
Yeah, I agree. And so the time frame is October of 22 to September of 23. So maybe the back end is when she was off, but like we've talked about it, the character development, like it was, she's undefeated. Like that was the story. So maybe that did hurt things that overall you didn't have those banger of matches all year round to look at.
I suppose that's the case. I mean, here's the game, but that is on AEW though.
Yes, 100%.
Now listen.
She was number 14, by the way.
And so in revisionist history, it's not like AEW would have just brought in Jade the way WWE's brought in Jade. I mean, Jade's been on every show except main event so far. I mean, she's
not watching. She might have been.
No. Tozawa was not awed by Jade Cargill, but she's been on all the shows. So I think it creates, again, this is why Triple H is very good with some of these stories. It creates the mystery of NXT, SmackDown, Raw. Well, she's showing up, but it's kept very old school in that regard, very old school WWE. We're going to slowly introduce her to the audience, but where's she going to land? It sounds like NXT to me, at least I think so. But nonetheless, I just think that when I look at these 10, it just shows you, Brian, women's wrestling has come a long way. And it's still got a ways to go. When I look at this women's top 250, Rhea Ripley deserves to be number 1. Hell, if you're doing it overall, she should be in the top 10.
Yes, 100%.
Think about what she really is the face of the Judgment Day, isn't she?
Yeah, and that's the thing, to your point there about the growth of women's wrestling. The 4 horsewomen, this has been a decade of 250. First time ever, none of them in the top 10. And you look at where they are. Charlotte, the highest ranked at 21. Becky at 29. Bayley, 41. Mercedes, 61. So women's wrestling, that boom that we've seen was sort of on the backs of those 4 women. And now they're not even top 10. And that says a lot about women's wrestling in today's day and age.
Yeah, Rousey's on that list. Roxanne Perez from NXT's on that list. Tiffany Stratton as well. They all helped make up 20 through the 30 spots. But let's kind of delve into that a little bit. Okay. Now, the 4 horsewomen come up in a promo every now and then from Charlotte. Yeah. Every now and then, right? And for a new audience, they don't really know what that is. Like, what's the 4 horsewomen? Sure. What's that? And then what is it without Mercedes? Why bring it up when Mercedes is not there? But, okay, fine. So I know I've seen this this week on wrestling social media from wrestlers that say, oh, the PWI, it's so passe. No one really cares anymore. Old Bill Apter mags. Nobody really. They care. They care. Because 100%. Even though they might be they're paid and they're all good with their money and they have generational wealth, they do care about perception. And I would say that it says a lot in women's wrestling that we've come this far, that Charlotte's not in the top 10, but Jordynne Grace is. And she's
right.
Jordynne Grace has wrestled her ass off for Impact and in the Indies. So she deserves that. Athena is one of the best heels in AEW/ROH that no one knows. She's doing yeoman's work in ROH. Unfortunately, no one's seeing it as much except me. I'm the one watching it, though, because I just think from a character babyface in WWE to where she is now, I mean, she should be on Dynamite. But look, it's crowded. She can't be lost in the sauce, so I get that. Jamie Hayter deserves it. For injury, the crowd pushed her into the championship. I feel like I pushed her in the championship. When I talked to Tony Khan, I told him, I said, in Chicago, you get 2 big pops. He goes, oh, I know what it is. I'm like, oh, do you? I said, it's Penta and Ray Phoenix. Yeah, they're very good. And Jamie Hayter. He goes, oh, yeah, because the crowd wanted Jamie Hayter to do well. They wanted her to break out of that threesome in that faction she was in. So I find it's just interesting in that there's a changing of the guard with the women's division.
Yeah, and I think also looking at just outside the top 10, Asuka at 11, Toni Storm at 12. Toni Storm, we talked about it last week. Like, she deserves an Emmy at this point. Like, the silent films, like what she's doing, those advertisers should be paying extra for being a part of the picture-in-picture in her silent films. And she had some injury during this time, but like someone like that's doing the character development, but we also know what she can do in the ring. Like, that's just awesome and fun to see.
Let me ask you this, Broitz. So who is in line to take that number 1 spot for the future? Because there's some good names on there. What do you think?
I mean, the one we've talked about a lot, I think you and I agree, number 8, Willow Nightingale. Like, she's still just waiting for that big win. She had that sort of big win in New Japan when Mercedes got hurt, but there's too much of her just being a filler in a title match. Like, she's facing Statlander on Saturday, battle of the belts for the TBS title. She's not going to win that match. Like, she needs to have that big moment in AEW because everything she's doing, it works. Like, character-wise, she's got the fans behind her. She can go in the ring. I think she's sort of the next one because of how raw she is.
I would say that. I think at some point that Jade Cargill, I think because you're in the WWE system, they're not going to keep her special. She's going to be out there a lot. So, whatever they have planned for her, I think that's going to be interesting. I really love where the women's division is going across the board in wrestling because they've proven time and time again that you could be at the top. Now here's another name. So Becky Lynch, right? Mm-hmm. We can agree that Becky Lynch is top 3, top 5 babyface in the company. Yeah. We can agree with that, right?
100%.
She went from a heel, which we thought that was ill-advised at the time, and now she's back to being a babyface, being herself. I could see her with a renaissance as well. She still is the man. She still does regular merchandise. I don't think people are tired of seeing Becky Lynch. From her time away and then coming back, people love her.
Yeah, and I think the angle now of her taking on NXT talent is going to be great for them. Whoever beats her will get that moment. And speaking of NXT, we raved about the match between her and Tiffany Stratton. Like, what's next for Tiffany? Like, do we see her on the main roster? Do we see her get a run? Because we're not watching NXT weekly, but you and I both were hooked by watching that match against Becky. It's like, all right, there's something there right now.
It is a safe space for us to talk about NXT because Gabe's not. We can discuss it, right? He's not around.
I watch when I see the reviews on Twitter and I see people raving about a match. I'm like, all right, I can fast forward through that. Still not watching weekly.
Yeah, no, me either. I mean, and there's a reason, right? Because again, it's about wrestling bandwidth. We can be able to support a company by reading about it and reading the headlines more so than like, all right, plop down the couch on a Tuesday. Let's take a look. I got to watch low-level college football. I don't have time for so I got to watch Sam Houston State. I got no time for NXT.
Tough loss last night. You can't lose to FIU. Bad job by them.
I watched that game. And guess who's the guy that had Sam Houston +1? No, -1. Me. FIU all of a sudden comes out of nowhere. Bad call on 4th down. I watched that. FIU snuck out of there with the victory. Nonetheless, though, we have very little wrestling bandwidth. So, but Tiffany Stratton, it's a great name because you would think, if you just give women time, they'll be able to put on bangers. No, everybody just can't put on a banger. You see Tiffany Stratton, you think, boy, you can't punch her. You can't, because she'll just break, right? No, she showed against Becky Lynch that she belongs on the main roster.
Yep, 100% agree. So I'm excited to see what the future is there. So a lot of promise, and it's pretty cool to see this list come together and see some of the different names on there.
All right, we've gone from one with 2 great interviews. We've got the women, and now what's number 3?
All right, we saw Gunther on Monday defend his title successfully against Bronson Reed. Roman Reigns makes his return to SmackDown in the season premiere. Which title change down the line will mean more, Roman or Gunther?
Okay, the more and more that we watch Roman in the back, right? Not even coming out, and it comes out very rarely, in the back with Heyman, in the back with one of the Usos and Solo Sikoa, it's like, hey, man, are you going to defend your championship? Are you just a character or are you a champion? To the point where I think that it is, from a wrestling data standpoint, there needs to be a huge asterisk. Like this whole thing passing up Bruno Sammartino for a long-time heavyweight champion. Well, I mean, you've murkied the waters because Seth Rollins is one of the heavyweight champions, and you're just chilling. You're just stopping by every now and then for a tentpole event. You are what people hated about Brock Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
As much as the bloodline story is cool and that, that we see Roman Reigns out there and he pops a rating, bottom line is, man, is that if you're not doing multiple promos on a weekly basis, at least being in the public eye, people forget about you.
Yeah.
People forget about you. We get to the point, bro, it's where we don't even consider him heavyweight champion. It's like universal champion of some distinction, right?
Right.
Seth's the champion to me. So for Gunther, and I just love this is Triple H, is all Triple H looking at Gunther and says, this guy's lost weight. This guy is never hurt. He puts on bangers of matches. He makes the company better. He makes his opponents better. I think that whoever beats Gunther is going to be really huge for the company. Intercontinental Championship doesn't seem secondary to me when you see Gunther out there because he's suited and booted. He looks good. His promo's gotten much better. He's with Imperium, not a dominant group, but he's ahead of it. I think it's Gunther.
Yeah, so this is where I'm torn. Like, from a wrestling standpoint, whoever beats Gunther, it's going to mean a lot. He has not lost in a singles match in terms of, like, non-DQ, he hasn't been pinned since he's been called up on the main roster. And he's got this long IC title run. Before that, he was the NXT UK champion for a very long time.
Yeah.
The man rarely loses. And this isn't one of those streaks where we mentioned Jade, we saw with Goldberg, where it's just squash matches every week. He's out there. He's wrestling. We're getting to see talent like we might see Johnny Gargano, the Bronson Reeds, the Chad Gables. They're like, all right, there might be something there. We might actually see them win, and it's being an amazing match because of that. I'm just torn because I don't know if the title still means anything once he drops it, or if it just becomes another prop and just another throwaway title. That's my only concern with whoever eventually beats him.
But, you got to lose it at some point.
Sure.
I'm not saying the audience gets bored because clearly the WWE is doing fine financially. It's not
right.
like, Gunther's on the card. Well, I'm not going. You're definitely going because he is an attraction.
Yes.
He's an attraction and a champion at the same time. And he's out there every week busting his ass. He has the workhorse championship. He's got the Ricky Steamboat, Tito Santana, Randy Savage, Rick Rude, whatever you want to say, the workhorse champion every night out there defending the title every week. And I'm never tired of him because I'm a big fan. When he was Walter, I'm watching him. I was like, he was like a young Andre. Andre used to look like that, by the way, before he blew up. You go back and look at the old footage from France when Andre was stomping grapes for a living before he became a wrestler. Let me tell you something, bro. He looked just like Gunther. And so, okay, let's go through some contenders. So why can't Sami Zayn be the Intercontinental Champion?
But that's the thing. So that's where Roman muddies the water. Like, if you take some of these guys that Roman's beating that weren't good enough to beat Roman, does it feel like a step down? Like, I, at this point, almost think it needs to go the other way. Why can't Gunther beat Roman?
Because that's too real for Roman. That's too much strain. That's too much pain for Roman. Are you kidding me? Let me ask you. So are you saying tonight that you want Gunther to be the Universal Champion? Is that what you want?
I'm feeling pretty close to that. Because, like, if it has to fit that WWE mold, like, my ultimate dream is still Sami as world champion. I've sort of given up on that it's ever going to happen. This feels possible. That, like, they've built him into such a star that he never loses if he beats the guy who's never actually on TV but also doesn't lose. Because Roman, when he's winning, is getting help. Gunther's not getting help. He's just going out there doing his thing and winning. Like, this seems like a legit champ and, like, would feel like even more of an impactful title change.
Who's the babyface?
Right. So that's, I guess, Gunther. You can start flipping them that way.
You're going to cheer the Austrian over Roman Reigns. Wow. What is this now?
It's 2023. It's all right.
That's right. 1983, that would have been taboo. You can't boo the non-American. You can't cheer the non-American. Yes.
That's fair. But, like, to Roman, like, there's just so few fresh options. Like, whoever beats Roman, if it ends up being Cody, it's like, oh, we should have seen that a year ago. Like, I don't think LA Knight's going to be that guy. Like, I don't see what that big moment is. Yes, it'll matter. It'll be important when Roman wins, but I don't see who that person is.
Okay, so if that's Cody Rhodes on his way to telling the story, is that a bad thing?
Yeah, it just feels like a letdown. Like, why not do it last year?
Okay. What about Bobby Lashley? No? That's right. You don't like Bobby. I forgot. Yeah. You don't like Bobby Lashley. That's unbelievable. Bobby Lashley. By the way, just as an aside, speaking of Bobby Lashley, you will hear from Angelo Dawkins from the WWE. That's going to be next week on Good Karma Wrestling. So we're rolling through some great guests. We'll hear from Angelo Dawkins. And so you have every opportunity, bro, to ask Angelo Dawkins why Bobby Lashley's washed. Ask him. I double dare you. You love to ask the tough question on this show. Ask him. There you go.
That's what I can do.
You know the dream match, and I know a lot of people won't get this. Only you and I would get this. And I don't know if he's ever going to get called up or when he's going to get called up, but you know that Gunther against Dragunov would be it, right? I mean, you talk about a powerful match. For those who have never seen it, we've talked about this on the show before. Yeah. NXT UK, during the pandemic, nobody there. It's Dragunov as the NXT champion now, but at the time, he's competing with Volter in NXT UK. It's one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. Now, it's not hyperbole. You know, if I say it, it must be unbelievable. Let me tell you something, bro. If you try to chop down Gunther, that's the kryptonite right there. Dragunov against Gunther, there's money in that.
Well, that's the thing. You say we might not see it. I wouldn't rule it out because the way they've been treating the IC title is we're getting to see some of these guys get opportunities. Like Chad Gable in a marquee match and a marquee angle is not something you would have expected a year ago. So if there's some sort of one-off, if Dragunov's still the NXT champion, like I think we could see that on TV or on a pay-per-view, and that would sign me up.
Could you help me remember? Have we seen Brock Lesnar against Gunther?
No. Did we see them in the Rumble? Because remember we have the Rumble run also.
I don't know. Like, of course, Lesnar would do this as a part-timer.
Right.
If he took on Gunther. But I think that along the way, Gunther should beat Brock Lesnar.
Sure.
I think he should. But, I mean, that's, to me, main event night one WrestleMania. To me.
I'd be fine with that. And last year sort of set the precedent. You know, the tag titles main event night one. And if this truly is Hunter's WWE, I wouldn't rule out the IC title main eventing a Night of Mania.
This is a great time for wrestling, only in this regard. Bro, it's, there was a time that if, say, for instance, Gunther lost the championship to, I don't know, Drew McIntyre or even Sami Zayn, right? Sure. You had to depend on TV and to drive the tickets to see the live event, right?
Right.
Where it's like, Gunther, he lost the championship to Sami Zayn, and then they would look at the sheet the week after like, wait, the attendance is down. Sammy's the champion. No one wants to see that. But Gunther as the champion back in the day, you got to see that because everyone wants to see him get his ass beat.
Right.
Now, in 2023 in WWE or in wrestling in general, come see WWE. And Gunther might be on the card. Okay, we'll just go see WWE. But back in the day, you had to have a specific match, specific night on a card, and then you see Gunther. If Gunther would lose a championship and then like a babyface would beat him, and then you see the attendance, like, where's the house? Where are the people? Because people want to see Gunther lose. He did lose, and now people don't want to see the babyface win.
Well, that's the thing. Because we're getting to see him on TV, we're getting to see these matches, there still is that intrigue. Whereas Roman, the long run is there, but we're not seeing him, and it's just one-off matches here and there. Like, the intrigue's not there for me right now when it comes to Roman.
It's not. And by the way, with Gunther, it's not booing. It's just there's a respect there from the audience, isn't there? There's somewhat of a respect.
Right, which is the weird part. Like, he's not getting cheered. He's not one of those cool heels. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, there isn't that crazy heat either.
I just think there's respect for the guy because when he wins, it's dominant, and he doesn't win with the same pinfall. That's the thing too. It's always different. So, it's a great question. There's plenty of contenders.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful if you're Triple H. If you got one dominant champion in Roman Reigns and another dominant champion in Gunther, at some point you don't want to get stagnant. You got to be able to mix that up at some point. I don't mean the hot potato tag team championship. I don't mean that, but you got to do something to just make it seem like, hey, we have strong contenders that actually can win. And so I think that's very paramount for them.
Yep, I agree.
All right, so we will go now to our next segment.
Let's do some news and notes.
Yes, and that'll be news and notes because we got a ton of those.
Yes. All right. You mentioned earlier Ring of Honor. They announced this week their third and final pay-per-view of the year, Final Battle. It'll take place Friday, December 15th in Garland, Texas. It was rumored earlier in this week that it was going to be at the Manhattan Center. This will be their first one since Death Before Dishonor back in July, which was in New Jersey. Saw Athena and Willow main event that show. Oh, that's going to be cool. I'll definitely be watching. Listen, I've been watching ROH, and I just think that, again, if you're just looking for pure wrestling, they got it. Yeah.
And so, again, there's still a need for Ring of Honor to have a platform for everyone to watch outside of Honor Club. But, bro, I'm watching it. I just think that's going to be great. What's the venue again? It's going to be where?
Garland, Texas. They've been there before.
Garland, Texas. Okay, yeah.
But at least they're advanced, notice on this one. I feel like in the past, some of these ROH pay-per-views, it's, hey, in 2 weeks, catch the next Ring of Honor pay-per-view. So too much in advance.
Yeah, that's going to be good, and the matches are going to pay off too.
Right,
it's going to be great. And then of course, Athena should be in the semi-main to me because I think that she's been great. And then of course, Eddie Kingston. Let me ask you real quick: do you think that the general audience understands Eddie Kingston? Do you think that is more Japan, AEW, or do you think the general audience respects Eddie Kingston and his story?
I think there's something to relatability. Like, he's not, a Vince body guy. I think there's something to all right, he's going to put on his ball cap. He's going to go out there. He's going to curse and he's going to want to fight. Like, I think there's something to that with the audience.
Nothing like the New York ball cap as a champion, right? Not the corporate champion. Because you could do the old Austin thing all over again with them if you had a heel GM. But yeah, he's who he is. And I think that's very authentic.
Time to expand your wrestling bandwidth. House of Wrestling reporting that the NWA has agreed to 2 TV deals for 2024 with the CW network. The deal will include their weekly power show and also a weekly reality show about the company. Well,
that's Billy Corgan being able to stretch, finally. Stretches, kind of flexes muscles like, hey, I'm Billy Corgan, and I can be able to provide something for you. Now, again, there has to be some kind of relationship because I don't know what he could have showed CW. Like, here's our action, and they see Tyrus's ass as NWA champion, right? I don't understand that. It's too bad. It's too bad that this contract and this whole deal didn't happen during the Nick Aldis, Cody Rhodes, during that time. The 10 pounds of gold thing. I wish it was during that time. I don't know what they're selling now, but I disagree with Dave Meltzer when he says, well, you only have 4 shows that's really drawing an audience. This show could draw an audience, but you got to produce it right, and you got to tell stories. They got a lot of work to do. I mean, they have some talent on the roster, but it just can't be a wrestling show. It's got to be unique.
Well, it's interesting. So Women of Wrestling, which is on CW, I have it in my DVR. I couldn't tell you when it actually airs, but it airs on the CW, and they're outdrawing Impact most weeks because CW is a little easier to find.
Well, why aren't you watching Women of Wrestling? What are you doing there?
I don't know. Again, bandwidth. There's only so much time. Like, once we got a football season, maybe I'll watch some more episodes.
I can tell you that, yes, it's on my DVR. It's on Saturday nights at 6 Central.
Oh, okay.
On the CW, and there's a replay also. But I can't say that I'm watching it, though, because I know it's there. I understand it's there. I have seen it a couple times. It's a little bit campy, like the old Glow show.
Okay.
Like the ring is really, really tiny. I'm like, are they really wrestling? If the ring, it doesn't look like an AEW or WWE ring. When it's real small and the ropes seem bouncy, like they're in a bounce house, that's a problem.
But people are watching, and maybe that's just because of the accessibility of CW. But people are watching.
Men are horny.
All right.
Don't forget about that factor. I know that won't be in the review of the ratings, but you have to be able to have the ratings of men are horny for very attractive women wrestling.
I just checked my DVR down here in South Florida. Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern is when we catch that show.
Oh,
so
well, it's a decent. Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're just run into it, it's not a bad time. And by the way, because of CW, I think you get this as well. It might be 2:00, but that thing's preempted because there's college football in the CW. Have you seen this? I think I saw Louisville on there last week on the CW. So they might be preempted and pushed to a different time. But again, in all seriousness, good for NWA. Good for them that they were able to find themselves a TV deal. I don't know about the other deal with the reality show. That's almost passe now. I don't know why you need that. But the wrestling, it's important for them to have a platform. And also, I saw that Corrigan was ripping YouTube, saying that YouTube does not give the true number anymore. He did.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess that's something to blame. I don't know. But like you said, he sold the network on something, so we'll see.
I mean,
finally, news and notes. Goldberg in an interview with Chicago Sports Podcast was asked about today's product versus the past. Said, quote, "They're doing a damn good job. It's just they're not that deep." Talking about the current state of pro wrestling.
Yes, I saw that, and my response to that was, yes, they would be deeper if I was on the roster.
Right. That's the weird thing. Like, you look at the message, and it's stuff that you and I have talked about, and we've talked about on this show, where it's like, hey, let's get some more storytelling. But when it comes from that guy, you sort of lose some legs a little bit.
He just wants to be loved again. And it's like, your day's done, man. You ruined it in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. You almost killed The Undertaker. So when he
get ready for his final match at some point.
Yeah, when he says he doesn't have there's not a lot of depth, he means he should be on one of those rosters. And it's like, right. I know he's in great shape, but he can't get it done anymore. So what you need is Ryback against Goldberg someplace in some indie, and that they can both end it. They can both end their wrestling careers all at the same time.
Ryback said it'll be the greatest ever. Can't deny that.
Okay, you put it in some high school gym that draws 500 people, and that'll be all she wrote. That's all we need. It's amazing.
All right, let's get to our matches of the week before we have to put Goldberg and Ryback in there.
Okay, matches of the week. And again, once upon a time on this show, it was just match of the week. One match, and then the show would be over. But no, here's an extra 30 minutes for you, everybody. It's a match of the week. So,
we try to keep it to 3.
God. Danielson against Christian on Collision.
Yep.
Toledo, Ohio. Good crowd, by the way, in Toledo. It's a very they don't get a lot of acclaim very much. That's really a C town, but they got wrestling on a Saturday night. Danielson and Christian showed the young people in the back how to wrestle and how to be able to tell a story.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable. The two of them, like, you're curious of what they were going to do when Danielson ended up becoming the number 1 contender, but just two guys that know how to deliver is what happened.
Gunther against Bronson Reed.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, that was on Monday Night Raw. Again, just shows you Gunther is just amazing. Again, a small, a big, somewhere in the middle. He finds a way to be able to put bangers on. Uso and Rhodes against Waller and Austin Theory. I thought that was an excellent match on SmackDown.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
All right. So I try to limit it to 3. There's a lot more. There's like 18 more, but you give us some, please.
All right. So I'll throw a couple maybe honorable mentions if you want to talk about Ricochet versus Nakamura. Like, it's still odd to me to see Nakamura elevated and doing good things on TV.
Yeah. And by the way, that speaks to Raw. Raw was a hell of a wrestling show on Monday. Hell of a wrestling show.
Another one sort of outside looking in, I think it was a good chance to showcase new talent. Samoa Joe versus Willie Mack on Saturday.
I watched it, and it's just kind of like, what I was thinking was, I was like, okay, so Willie Mack comes through the back door. It's like, I'm going to take it on Samoa Joe.
Right.
Okay. So are you leaving now, Willie Mack? Are you part of ROH? Like, he just came out of nowhere. Two veterans that know exactly what they're doing. It was a really good match.
All right, so my third one, so I have Gunther Bronson, Bryan versus Christian, Kenny Omega versus Kyle Fletcher last night. Like, Kyle Fletcher is about to sort of break off. You might have to kiss goodbye to Aussie Open, because as Fletcher gets this sort of singles run, people are going to say, like, this guy doesn't really need to do tag team wrestling. Maybe he's a singles guy. Like, Danielson, Omega, like, the guy's delivering right now.
It was great that Kenny Omega was in the ring doing Kenny Omega things. He only knows one speed. There is no half-ass Kenny Omega match. He's not going to, even for TV, He goes, yeah, I'll go out there, but I need 20 minutes. I need time to really get out there and do it. And he made Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah.
What that match told me afterwards was like, okay, they believe in Kyle Fletcher as a singles. Because usually when that's in that situation, the single that's usually in tag team wrestling is a little bit, it's like a half speed off or,
Sure.
Maybe a step off. Man, that told me all I need to know about Kyle Fletcher. What a fantastic match between Omega and Fletcher.
And Kenny did drop it to the camera. I'm too old for this shit after doing something over the top rope. So that's always entertaining also.
Let's stop doing it then. Stop doing it if it hurts you, for God's sakes.
So, that's it for matches of the week.
Yeah, I mean, all those are good. I thought that both shows were good. I think Raw is one of the best Raws we've seen in a long time because there was hardly any fluff and a lot of solid wrestling. That tells you that's a Triple H show right there. And then from at Rosenberg, Texas, which I thought was interesting because I looked it up. It's 45 minutes outside of Houston.
Yeah.
I'm like, boy, the Astros are playing against this, and it didn't stop the crowd. Was the crowd somewhat quiet here and there? Yeah, I think they got into the Kenny Omega match.
Sure.
And it was a new building too, and a new wrestling city. I went back in my Rolodex, bro, and I'm like, Rosenberg, Texas, never. I've never seen wrestling there.
The show, though, I don't know, like, maybe it was just for me, like, just the main event and that feeling at the end of the night, like, the Battle Royal where, like, who it's going to be, like, 2 guys out of the 12, like, it's just a bunch of random, like, all right, this guy's not winning. Like, that just sort of takes away from it. There have been rave reviews. It was taped last night. Mystico coming in, taking on Rocky Romero. A big deal in Mexico, a new deal between AEW and CMLL. So you had that to look forward to on Friday in Rampage.
Wild idea as we close. Why don't you have like Los Ingobernables?
Yeah,
I said that right. Those guys. Why don't you have them and just the Kingo and all those guys and just let them all just take over Rampage?
That's
like
fine.
An all Mexican wrestling Rampage.
Why not? You have nothing to lose at this point.
Rocky Romero. There's like all those guys, right? Because I saw the vignettes and I'm like, well, these guys are not going to get real television time. Andrade, just put it all on Friday night and just have like a Friday night, the best of Mexican wrestlers in AEW, CMLL, and just try to pop a rating.
Almost do what WWE tried to do with like 205 Live.
Yeah.
Where like people are like, oh, if you want to find that stuff, it's all right there. You know what you're getting with that show. Like, why not?
So it makes the show not skippable if you do that. Just a wild idea. Tony would never do it, but I think that really works. By the way, as a side note, a quick, cheap Mick Foley plug. Saturday morning, I'll be on Busted Open.
There we go.
Yeah, on SiriusXM, Fight Nation. I'll be teamed with the great Denise Salcedo.
Okay.
I'll be in for Mark Henry, the world's strongest man. So a little Good Karma Wrestling love.
Bound for Glory pre-show?
Huh?
Bound for Glory pre-show.
Sounds like it, yeah. Sadly, yes. And also, by the way, not only that, but also a 3-hour collision at Battle of the Belts.
Battle of the Belts, yeah. You got Orange versus someone. I think it's Kip Sabian or John Silver or something. Trios titles on the line against the former Jericho Appreciation Society. Statlander versus Willow again.
Oh, man.
3 hours of wrestling Saturday night.
So if you're around Saturday, 8 to 11 a.m. Central, I'll be on Busted Open on SiriusXM Fight Nation. All right, awesome. So we've had 2 great guests. Let people know. Like, share, and subscribe Good Karma Wrestling on YouTube as well. And don't forget on X, Twitter as well, at GKW_wrestling. So
that's right. You got right there, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. Scan the QR code, subscribe. We got all those interviews. Angelo Dawkins next week. Like, they're saying some stuff. You're going to see the links out there. Like, oh, I heard about that on Good Karma Wrestling. Go back, watch the show, see the clips, comment, subscribe, do your thing.
Yes, and we're going to, for flash photo photography, we'll wait for you to go to that QR code. If you're watching on YouTube, it's right there. Make sure you hit that. Go ahead. We're going to be off in 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. For Brian Rowitz, I'm Jonathan Hood. Thanks so much for checking out Good Karma Wrestling. We'll join you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast.